Okay, right. Morning. We are on to episode 7 of Off Lead with Stuart and Emma. And this morning we're joined with by Ant Clarke, international judge, international handler, world famous dog trainer, all the bits and pieces that go with that. So yeah, we're happy to be joined by Anthony this morning. So welcome to the podcast, Anthony. Do you prefer Anthony or Ant?
Whatever. In called words.
It doesn't really matter.
At least it's polite, Stuart.
Cool. So yeah, we'll start off a little bit. We'll talk about the WAO recently. Seemed like a good event for what I saw online and stuff, watching all the bits and bits on there. And I understand that was yours and Protest's last international event, or is it?
As an event, it's definitely one of my favourites. It's always one of those things I'm striving to qualify for each year.
Yeah.
This one meant a little bit more, obviously coming back from being away with COVID and everything like that. And obviously now Protest is getting older. It was his last event. I thought, what better place to kind of retire at than at that event. So it was kind of like a bittersweet for me. I love the event as a whole. I like the concept. I like everything it's about. But obviously going there, I lost a little bit of motivation myself during COVID.
Yeah.
I think we've spoken about that a lot. I think everybody did, didn't they?
Yeah, definitely. And I kind of got to a point where probably 6 to 8 weeks before the event, I was still trying to decide whether I was even going to go or not.
Okay.
Because all through COVID, I didn't really train.
Yeah.
I'm being honest. I got a couple of young dogs that I probably should have been training that I did nothing with.
Yeah.
And then obviously an older dog, keeping them fit and getting them to that kind of quality to be able to go and compete in an international event is obviously difficult. So I'd done a lot of the fitness on the build up, but I still wasn't really feeling it.
Yeah.
But then I kind of thought, well, I owe it to him a little bit more, and I love the event. So why not? Let's get out there and see what happens.
Yeah.
I think if you turn it round to the dogs, isn't it? We always do that, don't we? They're not sitting there worrying about COVID. They're not. They're just like, come on, let's do it for them. So that's quite special, isn't it?
And I suppose once you got there, the atmosphere kicks off, doesn't it? And then you get stuck into it a little bit more.
As soon as I got to the Euro tunnel, it started to get a little bit like, okay, it's a bit more exciting now.
Yeah.
You see everybody, you see all the people that you haven't seen for potentially 2-3 years.
Yeah.
And then that kind of competition mode gets into the body. And as soon as you go out for that unofficial training session, then everything starts to get a little bit more exciting.
It starts to get more exciting.
The process all the way through.
Cool.
Was there any part of you that kind of thought this may not happen? Because we've been let down so much before with COVID and everything. I know with IMCA coming up, and I'm watching figures of COVID coming up and everything else, and people saying, oh, it's not going to affect it, and the government don't believe it, it's just not going to affect it, there's no hospitalization, and there's still that element of me that's like, oh, is this actually going to can I actually get excited?
I think we got to a point where we were being let down so much. I think it's kind of one of those things that's always in the back of the mind, and then there was all the different variants creeping in and other sort of diseases and things that people have been speaking about in the media. But I think we've learned to kind of understand that the media amplify everything so much. So it's kind of knowing, and I did a bit of research on local area and stuff before we went out there to see what their numbers were like. I think the biggest stress in my head was actually the new animal health certificate. Talking to the vets and stuff.
Did that go all well? Did that go smoothly?
Yeah, it was absolutely fine. It was a lot easier, but I think reading what people have put on social media and sort of reports I'd seen online, I think that was the thing that I was more worried about. That if the wrong.
Maybe they got a slight spelling mistake or something, and then that was it. Your stuff.
Yeah, Stuart and I just did a whole podcast on social media, the use of social media.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Cool. So that was a really good event. That was cool. So we're also going to now talk a little bit about your event, your British Agility Championships. Firstly, what sort of stoked you to start that up? What was in your mind at the start when you got that going?
Well, it kind of stemmed way back when I first competed at the Junior World Championships in 2007. Went out there representing Great Britain and the Kennel Club. I was lucky enough to be invited as the only junior to be able to go out there, which was
Okay.
good fun. It was my dog Magic at the time, and we were successful. We won the gold medal and we came back, and it was something that I'd never really experienced before. The whole concept of the event, the arena, the excitement, the build up, the atmosphere, everything was completely different to anything we'd run here, even for example, Crufts.
Yeah.
And I was like, I want to bring something like that into the UK and see what we can achieve. And I started OJAC, which was the Open Junior Agility Championships to start with, to try and give the kids the same experience that I had, to be able to hopefully push them forward to want to go out and do that. So it kind of...
And I think you achieved that. I do think so. I took Stacey 3 or 4 times to OJAC, and she'd only just started competing, and it was a tremendous event.
Perfect. And the concept was to develop something, and my kind of like strap line or tagline for it was kind of developing the future of the sport.
Yeah.
And that was kind of the concept of maybe from the junior handler process as well as an event process as well.
Yeah.
And we had, for the first 3 years, I think we had the Dutch, the French, the Belgians, we had a couple of handlers from America and Canada come over to OJAC, which was great. And then obviously travel restrictions and stuff on how to get dogs in and out of the country, and the cost of things changed a little bit. So I kind of modified the event a little bit to help more closer to home people, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And that's been being really successful, and I've been really happy with that. And then I thought about, okay, how can we now push that forward to everyone and develop it for the adults as well a little bit as well. So with things in mind like Crufts, Olympia, that whole atmosphere that everyone gets kind of like that buzz from, I wanted to try and create something a little bit different, but puts pressure on handlers to be able to kind of maintain a good focus through over the whole weekend.
Yeah.
Instead of it just being like, go in, hit one run, well done, that was great, okay, go home, chill out, whatever. It was, can we keep that mentality throughout the whole weekend? Having competed internationally, they're long days, it's exhausting. You might have a run at 8 a.m. and you might have another one at 8 p.m. And being able to maintain that focus, the dog's ability, your focus, actually the desire to get up and go and do it as well. So I wanted to try and create something like that. So that was when the British Agility Championships was born, in my office, kind of like planning everything, everywhere, just trying to work out how I wanted it to work. And I also wanted to be able to give back to the competitors that have invested their time and effort into it. So that was why I put the kind of the money prize on it as well. That was something that I wanted to try and do. We travel week in, week out. We know how expensive everything is at the minute. Just to get in a vehicle and drive there, let alone some of the entry fees. But also create something a bit different. So giving back, and it was kind of a concept that I wanted to say to people, well done, here it is, instead of just that ribbon or that rosette. So they can invest back into that to hopefully do it. And I think there's negatives to that. You can hear people on social media again all the time saying, oh, money shouldn't be involved. But you look at it, is the way the sport, I believe, is going to get better is by being able to invest more into it as well. From a competitor point of view, as well as what the event organizers give back to us. And the thing in which I try to achieve, instead of it just being in a farmer's field, okay, so you turn up, the sheep had been on it the week before, the farmer had got his tractor stuck and there was rivets and ruts everywhere. I wanted somewhere to be consistent for every competitor. So going into where people, in a way, they can't say, oh, it started raining, so I was at a disadvantage. I wanted it to be as consistent as we possibly could.
So making it a fairer event.
Yeah, absolutely. And not every weekend show can be on a venue like that. The investment and the cost of those venues obviously is a lot. But the concept of what I tried to do with those events was make it something that was a bit more exciting. And it wasn't the same thing week in, week out. I wanted the podium set up, the big archway, you walk into the arena, maybe music playing, the commentary, all things that change the dog's mentality, but also change the feeling of you as a handler walking.
I think from the events that I've been, just interrupt there, that sort of setup for me, the tunnel going in, the funnel to get there, all of that things, it completely changes my attitude towards running a course. So
Yeah.
like a normal show, like say the weekend in the field, it's all good. We go and do that every weekend, whatever. But when you have to go through a process, somebody's checking you in, somebody's putting you into a funnel, you've got all the different stations to get to, and then you go through the tunnel, like say with a couple of lights underneath there, a bit of music, whatever. It just makes a massive difference, I think, to you.
We were talking about we were talking about this at a show at the weekend. And this isn't, you guys are much better than me, but I struggle to compete my dog at an ordinary grade 7 class. I just like, I don't feel the motivation.
Yeah.
It's been grade 7 since pre-COVID. And if I'm not going for a qualifier or an event or champ and I enter a grade 7 class, I tend to go into training mode. And the person that I was talking to was like, well, why would you do that? And I'm like, I don't know. I just don't know. I'm not saying it's right. I'm not saying it's wrong, but I cannot find the motivation that, say British Agility Championships weekend has been in my diary since last year. My Airbnb has been booked since last year. It's all done. And champ and Olympia, but then you enter a grade 7 class and I'm like,
I think the difference on all that side of things, on my point of view, is that there's so many shows now.
Who's got their phone on?
It's my office.
Yay! Go on, Karen, sorry.
I think the difference is now is there's so many shows every weekend that gradually is devaluing certain events. And going to if you want to call them a premier show or I don't know whether we can say the word, or an elite.
Say anything you like.
Don't say elite, not elite. Oh no.
I know, social media.
Elite top handlers, like who are they?
But go into a show that we're seeing that has your Olympia, your Crufts, your ABC qualifiers, your champ, all those sorts of things. They're on the same weekends now as 14, 15 other shows. So what does grade 7 jumping mean? What does grade 7 agility mean? Because actually you go to that premier or that elite show and there's, let's say, 50 to 100 dogs in one class. You go to 2 or 3 other shows that could be within 25, 30 minutes and there's 4 dogs in the class.
Yeah.
Well, it's not really even on par with anything. So when we start looking at that, I wanted to try and create something where, yes, okay, it might cost a little bit more to enter, but we try and guarantee that the venue's going to be good. The course design is hopefully going to be something that everyone wants to have a go at. There's going to be challenges in there. And the way in which my event works, it's over several different rounds and tournaments. Yep. So there's something for everybody. There's a novice qualifier. Okay, then you've got your kind of like your speed stakes, sort of like jumping steeplechase qualifier. And then you've got your normal agility jumping qualifier over 4 rounds. So it gives something for everybody. And I think by bringing that all to a consistent venue, bringing in an international judge, actually working with the judges as well. So we're not alienating them, all right, having a chat about course design, having a chat about what I'm trying to achieve with the event. So everyone's a lot clearer and cleaner on
what are you trying to achieve with your course design?
Well, obviously, if you go on social media, everyone has their whole kind of like, whether you call it opinion or dictatorship of what is a good course. But what I try and do is create a progression. So, for example, everyone's in round 1. Okay, do I want to kill everybody in round 1? Absolutely not, because that ruins the weekend. Okay, but
everyone goes home.
I want it to gradually increase, so the final becomes a little bit more of something that everyone's really worked hard to get to. And people may then become negative, saying, well, why should the final not be as difficult as round 1? But
because the pressure of the final is what it is, isn't it?
Already going to be built up.
Yeah.
The easy stepping stone effect to be able to make that progression forward is something I definitely talk to with the judges. I like to try and get them to include the equipment. And when I say the equipment, it's not shy away from using the tire, the long jump, the wall. Someone has moaned about it again on social media 2 weeks ago that they didn't train.
No way.
And they've headbutted it. Like, you know what? It's all about dog training. If the concept of the layout of the course is correct and the dogs that are competing in that event are educated well enough to be able to complete a tire, a wall, whatever it is, theoretically, things should go wrong.
Well, and the thing is, and is actually that's the handler's fault. So if you've trained your dog correctly on the equipment and the dog is suitable and athletic enough, etc., you know, we've all done it. We've put our dogs wrong to even a normal jump, and our dogs have stacked it. You know, we don't like doing it, we don't want to do it, but in the spur of the moment, and not many people on social media would say, I did that wrong.
Also, the thing is we're dealing with this, it's kind of like we say it's a bit of an impact sport, isn't it, really?
Mm-hmm.
So when the dog hits the tunnel, what happens? Okay, they could fall over in a straight tunnel. They could fall over on the ground. Okay, it doesn't matter. There is a certain amount of risk to it. If we are training the dogs well, we're running on consistent surfaces, we are giving the dogs the education they need to be able to get around specific courses through specific equipment. When we're then put under pressure, hopefully our dog's conditioned and has enough understanding to be able to do that. Yes, things are good, but that goes wrong when you get in the car and you drive to work potentially.
Exactly.
So we can't babysit everything. As an event, we try and cover all bases, talk through. There's a lot of briefings with the judges. The team I have helping and working, they're all briefed about specific things. So I try and bring that whole thing together so everybody knows what's expected and also how they can communicate that maybe to the judge or to me. So hopefully we don't get the opinion of somebody else creating a negative event.
You'll always get an opinion, won't you? So your styles. So I've noticed before, you tend to kind of have a British judge and an international judge, so that you get different styles of coursing, testing different things, I guess, as well.
I think bringing in somebody internationally is exciting as well. It gives the opportunity to do different skills and different tasks, and obviously that I take advantage. I guess you take something away, and it can help advance your event from listening to what the other judges say. Having worked with the judges that I've brought in, they've already given me little tips and things about what they do in their country for events, and what's worked well and what hasn't worked well, and talking about things like different timing setups and all sorts of things like that. You can learn from people, even if you take the smallest of things. I think as dog trainers and handlers, we probably do that more than we really sort of like give ourselves credit for. But actually, of an evening, having a conversation, talking to the judge, and kind of saying, okay, what did you think of this? Did you enjoy it? If they say no, why? Okay, what's the reason? But not taking it as a negative, actually taking it as, okay, I'm going to
a critique.
It can critique something to make something better. And I think that's the thing, is that agility is very much set in its own way. And I think that the development of what we need to do is actually listen to these other people at times, whether you agree with it. Sometimes actually, when you sit back and you think about it, I know I'm hard-headed. I literally have what I want in my head and I work hard towards it. But I know that I've taken advice from other competitors and other event organizers and judges and people that are involved with events, and thought, actually, I really like that idea. How can I add that small snippet into potentially something I'm already doing? And I think that's what our regular weekend shows, if we call it, like I said, the premium or the elite events, and then the other events that are happening on the weekend. If we just actually took into consideration some of those little things that we could easily change, I think sport in general would be better.
I agree, but I think sometimes so we talk about people generally moaning, don't they? You know, I recently threw the towel in a training agility, right? 2 weeks ago I'd been for a really stressful move and I lost it. I was just like, I don't mind admitting, I was like, bang, that's it, I'm done. And my clients were massively shocked at that point. And then suddenly I had all these people saying to me, like, you know, you've done this amazing, you've done this amazing, you've done this, that's great, that's great, that's great. Whereas what had led up to that was that, you know, I was under immense stress with my move. Everybody was moaning. So everybody, you know, I couldn't do anything right. This was wrong, this was wrong, this was wrong. And I think that's what happens when people come home from a show. But you do see it on social media, someone say, oh, that was a really nice show. But it's rare, isn't it? People will always pick up this should, this isn't right, this isn't right, this isn't right. Whereas actually, if you were to have that conversation with the person and say, like, why wasn't it right? What could we do to improve that? They probably wouldn't have the answer. In 70% of cases, they would probably go, well, I just didn't like it.
Yeah, and also the thing is everyone is really big and brave sat behind that keyboard.
Yeah, we've just had that conversation as well.
When people have said things and I've heard things, I'll go up to them and say, okay, I've heard you said this, and you can see them kind of like panic and they kind of take a backward step, and I'm like, okay, well, what's the issue? And then all of a sudden they have that communication and they go, okay, I didn't understand that. But social media doesn't have that dislike, oh, sorry, I didn't understand button. You know what I mean? And then the thing is, then you've got 1,000 people on whatever social media platform now reading that this big name or this elite handler or this new to agility handler has got this opinion. And then you've got 15,000 people all around the world now piping up and giving their opinion on something they don't even know anything about.
So on social media, and you have a policy, don't you, on the British Agile, on your schedule, that you sign and agree that you're about the social media aspect of things, don't you? About keeping it positive.
Yeah, it's not even about the positivity. I don't mind people giving me critiques. I don't want them to be slagging off the judges that are giving up their day, the ring crew that are working from 3 hours before you guys arrive at the event to 3 hours after you leave the event, for potentially me and the team in the office that are flat out for months before, making sure everything is as clean and as sort of like precise as we can get it. And just because you were late to your run and my ring crew said, actually, sorry, you've missed your run, you don't have to then find every hole in the event.
I don't think sometimes I go around with my head in a bag, but I don't think I've ever seen any negativity on social media about your event.
Maybe not. I don't know.
I don't think I have.
Maybe you're in the wrong groups, Emma. That's what it is.
or like I said, I go out walking for 3 hours and shove my phone in my desk because I'm not interested. If I've had a good time, I'm not interested. But I don't think I've ever heard that. I've only ever heard good things about the event, even sitting here. So I like when we're interviewing people and that, I like Stuart too. I like to get a little bit like, okay, what about this? What about that? But I can't think of one thing that I would change or that I've heard people say.
Thank you. No, I think I have been very lucky that the team
lucky or clever.
The team you put around you in the events obviously help massively. I'm probably the person that takes any flack that comes in, which is fine. And probably the people that are helping me out at the event want to moan at me and shout at me for kind of trying to stick as tight to timetable and making sure everything happens. And we might only have a 5-minute break here and a 10-minute break there when it was scheduled to be 20 minutes or whatever. But the thing is I'm trying to do everything as relaxed and as calm as possible, and it's kind of like it looks all smooth potentially on top, and sometimes we're paddling like crazy in the office behind to make sure everything goes, which I think actually in a way is what all events should be doing. Try to keep everything as calm and that for everybody out in the environment to see and enjoy themselves, but also working ridiculously long hours and making sure it's as good as they possibly can behind the scenes. And I've had people come up to me and said, oh, look, I think this worked really well, but have you considered this? And I like those conversations. I encourage people to come and have that conversation with me. I don't mind what people's opinions are if they come and have that conversation. And I think going back to that point about the social media clause was really to protect the people that are working hard and for them not to think that they're being slagged off, or targeted for working ridiculously long hours and working really hard behind the scenes. Said I'm hard-headed. People can slam me as much as they want, but it was really those people that are giving up their weekend. And the thing is, the weekend events, yes, you guys turn up at Saturday morning at 8 a.m. or whatever time it is. We've been building since the Wednesday. So we're already 3 or 4 days in potentially, and people are already tired sometimes before the event starts.
And people need to remember that 2 years ago we didn't have an event, and do you know what I mean? you know, that's what we was talking about off air. You know,
Yeah.
I went there and I was grumpy as well, but I've never seen so many grumpy people that we just need to remember, like, you know, our dogs don't get up in the morning and go and be grumpy with me, do they? They just don't. So, you know.
So, so with the event, do you, because we had a conversation a while ago on another episode about sort of levels of agility, and whether we're sort of inclusive or not when it comes to certain events and stuff. But do you class like British Agility as being inclusive, or are you trying to find a market for, let's say, I'm going to say elite, but let's say we're trying to move everybody up a level?
Can I just, sorry, before you do that, your novice, is it 1 to 3? I can't remember. Is it 3 to 5? Who's it aimed at? Yeah, it's a British Agility.
1 to 4.
1 to 4. Okay, so you have got 1 to 4, 5 to 7.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
So
sorry.
for the championships, I've got grades 1 to 4, and then the 5 to 7. So I've got the novice stakes, which is obviously those slightly lower levels.
Yeah.
And then the championship for the higher levels. But within that as well, we have the what we've called in the past the Grand National, which is everybody together. Okay. Yeah. So it gives everybody that run out to kind of compare themselves against the others, because obviously there's, and again, as trainers as well, we tend to train harder than what we're potentially competing.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So there's been several times where lower level dogs have done really well in the Grand National classes, which then puts them forward to another final. So that final can be open to anybody. So you've got your individual final and then like an overall final, which gives everybody the opportunity to run against whoever. Yeah. So I've seen, personally, I think it works quite well. I've also then got the British ABC Championships as well. So that's a challenge over 3 runs. So you've got like a steeplechase round, agility round, and a jumping round, and it's combined over that.
And that's a separate competition, isn't it?
At the moment, it's a separate competition. Yeah. Probably looking at potentially bringing it together at some point as well.
Yeah, because this is what Stuart and I were chatting about, isn't it? That actually, can one event do it all? Really?
I think it can, but I think that the problem with that is again, you need a bigger venue, bigger pricing and costs, and also it's the ability to have enough judges and also enough helpers to make it run well.
And then, of course, you're going to get the person that says, well, you know, the price has gone up. Obviously, you know, money's tight at the moment. And so someone's going to say, I can't afford it. So naturally, you've excluded that person. You know, it doesn't mean to say that you've meant to exclude them. And that's why I think that you can't keep everybody happy. You're a great believer in not babysitting everybody as well, aren't you? Is that actually be happy with the fact that we can't include everybody.
I think the hardest thing as well is, if you're going to an event and there's nothing being given back to you, then potentially I can understand that you would not want to pay a higher fee. Mm-hmm. If, for example, you win the championships, you're getting anywhere between 400 and 500 quid back. But also then you're getting the concept of, like, I've had some great sponsors in the past. For example, we've got UMove at the moment. They give out like a year's free subscription, or a sponsorship deal for a year. You move products. So again, then you're looking at potentially for one dog that could be anywhere between £800-900. And we've got a couple of equipment sponsors that are giving away stuff for this year as well. So again, we're looking at being able to give back in a different format. If it was just
See, I would say that you have created a high profile event, successful high profile event, so congratulations with that. And actually, with the year that I podiums at the British Agility Championships, it was my daughter beat me, so there was, I think it was actually Stacey then me. That was probably a moment to remember, just because it's in my head, it's a high profile event, that you create an amazing atmosphere, and you have to work to get on that podium. And I think that's amazing, you know. And as you say, you create that feeling, and I've had some of my clients that's done it on the novice. It's like, I got on the podium, and it's almost, for us, it's almost as big as Crufts and that sort of thing. So
I think the thing is like, for example, the small thing like standing on a podium, It's not a small thing in the
not small
of actually competing because you've had all that duration, but actually making someone's success feel better by putting them on in front
definitely.
of a backdrop with the judges and having good photography and a good picture is what makes that even bigger, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I agree.
You end up going to certain events and you win a big class, and you have a picture in front of a gala tent potentially with judge.
Careful.
But it's that whole
No,
thing.
no, I know what you mean. Yeah.
You're qualifying for potentially the biggest event at Crufts, and the picture that you have, yes, okay, some people don't like the picture, but I think you don't see Lewis Hamilton, for example, winning F1 and then standing in front of a tent that is randomly hidden around the back next to a caravan.
And also there's been events lately that there's not even been like an announced presentation.
Yeah, I think that's difficult because, again, sometimes when we look at things like that, we're in venues that are in the middle of areas where tannoys can't be used, and
that's been a big thing. That's been a real big thing coming out of COVID, isn't it? I've been to several shows that they've not been able to use tannoys lately.
I'm not going to lie, for me, I don't actually think it's a bad thing because there are certain people that really like to be on the tannoy all the time, and get to a point where you're just like, okay, if people can't work out what ring they need to be in at a certain time, then maybe we need to sharpen up a little bit. We've now got it all on our phones. We've got everything. We don't even have to walk around now with a piece of paper in our hand.
No.
Still people babysitting us to get to the rings to walk a course. Or
we have that a lot, like with the bigger events when you got like 14, 15, 18 rings even. And I have clients of mine who go, oh, it's 18 rings. I'm like, you've got to concentrate on 2 rings. You've got to concentrate on 18 rings, just 2 rings. You don't need to worry about the other rings.
And the thing is that the sport is growing. I think the sport is growing, but I think when you look at entries to certain events, it looks like that it's actually decreasing. But the thing is, because there's so many events on every weekend, why are people going to travel potentially 3 hours when they can travel 40 minutes and compete against 5 dogs? Whereas if they travel 3 hours, they might be competing against 25.
But some people would want to do that, wouldn't they?
Of course, yeah. And again, it depends on people's goals and ambitions. And it's not a negative to that person that drives 40 minutes. Like, I'm at the process at the minute. I've got a young dog I'm kind of training. I'm not going to go off traipsing around the country at the minute to try and go to random shows when I can potentially go down the road and train and practice in the ring.
I only have 2 weekends of the year where I've got a local show. Everything else is 2.5 hours away from me. Where
I'm located, I'm pretty lucky. I can get to quite a lot of decent shows within sort of an hour and a half. So but
So what do you think the sport could do with? I mean, we know it's not a sport. Stuart and I have spoken about this before. We feel that it would be so much better classified as a sport. Paul Hindley brought up a good point, didn't he? That actually that would take away the creativity of lots of things. So he put up a good point. Where do you see agility going in the future?
I think agility just needs to be a more clarified sport. Yeah, that makes sense. So do we really need all the grades we've got? Okay, whether you agree with it or not, it doesn't make any difference.
Yeah.
Do we need it? Do we need to potentially put regulations on, let's say, kennel club events or different organization events and say, actually, you can't run a show within, I don't know, 75 miles of another show that weekend? Okay, so we're spreading that a little bit more. Also think about, like, if we have got the grade, what is the progression? What does the progression mean?
Yeah.
Okay, should you have to be 2 dogs in the class, or should you have to be 50 dogs in the class? Is that a question?
Yeah, I'd also like to see, I think particular with Olympia, non-Olympia, some sort of course. The courses are similar. So there was a weekend a few weeks ago with the small dogs that there were 3 Olympia qualifiers in different parts of the country throughout the whole weekend. So the first thing that you had is a vast difference in numbers. So some of them, over 100 dogs, some of them I know had only 40 dogs. So you've got that first of all, but also I ran a course that I felt was more of a champ agility, or even a masters, a UKA masters. It, to me, the wrong dogs would have gone through on that, because you know it would have been the dogs that would have been sticking more to their trainer, etc., etc. So maybe some sort of regulation on course design for particular events.
I think that's always going to be difficult, because obviously judges' interpretation of specific events is very different. I think that the way in which our events, our regular weekend events, allow themselves to qualify or give handlers the ability to qualify for these events should be thought about, in a sense of, should they be positioned at specific shows that actually have maybe a little bit more money? And again, it's not adding money to the equation, but could they be at a better venue? I don't think we should be qualifying for, let's say, Crufts or Olympia, but running on a field that was cut on the Thursday. There's cow pat and sheep ring, and potentially there's that uneven, horrible ground. I don't think
yeah. And then of course you're going to get, you know, you think about social media and everything, then so, you know, someone's going to say to you, right, okay, but actually now that means that you're an elite person, you know, so suddenly you've then got that divide. I mean, and I agree with you, don't get me wrong, I totally agree with you, but playing the devil's advocate, you know, they're going to then say, well, then that's not fair enough.
But I think also when we look at, let's say, one of our biggest organizations and their biggest event, sometimes what ends up happening is people already put a negative on that before they've even got to that event. So the thing is people have already put pressure on that organization or that show to deliver, but they've already turned up at the show knowing that they've been potentially bad mouthing that venue or that event before you even got there.
Yeah, and then if they got around the course and got their red rose there, they'd be quite happy.
Yeah, exactly. So the thing is, if they turn up and they've already got, oh, this is a terrible venue, I hate this event, whatever.
You had a choice.
And they've had that, and they've driven 2 hours to get there, and they don't get their red ribbon, then all of a sudden social media becomes their platform to tell everybody about that. But don't like.
Let's remember, it's kind of life choices, isn't it? You don't have to get up, you don't have to go, you don't even have to go and run that course if you don't like it.
But they do the same thing. They get up, they do 2 hours, drive in, and then they do win. It's all about the win then. It's not about the bad mouth and that they didn't like the event and the organizer and this and that for the week prior. So it's very, it's
mindset, isn't it? It's down to the way people think, and you can't keep everybody happy. You can't babysit. Stuart's taught me that.
Yeah, you can't babysit everybody. Everybody's got a choice. You either do it or you don't. Simple.
Yeah. I had a client saying that the other day when I broke. They were like, "You cannot keep everybody happy, Emma."
Just do what you do. Cool. Right. So I think we're going to sort of wrap up a little bit.
Have we got anything new coming for British Agility?
Got anything new agility in
November?
Yeah, a few things. I can't say yet.
Cool.
Exciting.
It's in the diary anyway. It's in the diary, so we'll be there.
Yeah,
anyway.
I'll be there as well. I look forward to it.
Cool. Good. Amazing.
Excellent.
Right, thank you very much for joining us, and it was cool. And I hope you enjoyed it. And we'll catch up real soon.
It's a pleasure. Thanks, Ant. See you later.
Okay.
In a bit.
Bye-bye.
Bye.